There you are. Hello.
Can
Can you hear me?
you hear me?
Yes. Hardest part of my job here
Yeah.
is the technology every time. Thank you for joining. Also, thank you endlessly for all of the rescheduling chaos. Life's insane, as I'm sure you know.
Exactly.
But I
Um,
am so excited to have you here. We have Dara, like Sarah with a D, which is very, very fun, founder of Sam and Leo. And I am really amped to have you in the tent and chat with you about all things your world. So, welcome, welcome. If you just want to give a quick hello, hi, maybe introduce yourself, then we can dive into some of the topics and questions I have for you.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Dara Erck, founder of Sam and Leo, single mom of two kids, teen boys, but also have worked in global health most of my career and now starting this business and just really embracing parenthood into the teen years. So happy to be,
Yes,
and I live in
that
Colorado.
Oh,
So
we love Colorado. We have lost so many friends to Denver. I feel like they just keep moving there and we love it, but that's amazing. And ooh, teen boys, I'm sure that's could be like a whole podcast in itself. I have a 2-year-old, which is its own kind of thing, and it's
Oh, yes.
toddlers. Toddlers are an interesting phase, but I feel like every phase is always like, oh, you have a fill in the blank. And there's joys and there's highs and there's lows. But you mentioned a career prior to what you're doing now in public health. So
Yes.
with what you're doing now, I'm sure that had either an impact or an influence on why you decided to create Sam and Leo. So can you talk a little bit about the public health piece and how that ties into what you're doing today?
Yeah, such a good question. I have definitely pivoted in my career, but not because I didn't like what I was doing before. I absolutely loved my previous career in global health, mostly for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, working in places where drugs, vaccines, diagnostics just weren't accessible. And so just a lot of travel, which is hard with raising kids, especially small
I'm
kids, amazing
sure.
travel. Yeah. And doing amazing work, Ebola vaccine, like I loved it, but also intense. And also I come from a place of impact, and that's probably my nature more than like creating a business. Then COVID happened. So lots of intersections in my life and vaccines, and wasn't traveling. And I'd been sitting on this idea of what was missing in my own kid's life, dealing with a lot of mental health issues with my own kids. Had this idea and had time. So decided to jump into it, and then just kind of uncovered this space of clean teen products, especially in the supplement space and functional for mental health. But then I would also say that impact piece is just woven right through there. That really I'm more interested in the impact, how we support parents and teens
Yeah.
and through this. So yeah.
I love that you also have a tie back to the mental health piece, but you notice that there is a gap in the market with, in particular, that age group of kids. And reading a little bit more about you too, some of it stemmed from sending one of your sons to summer camp, where you're trying to look for things that are going to work that you also feel safe as a parent to let your child quite literally ingest.
Yeah.
And so, can you walk us through a little bit about like that moment in time where you're also like, what the heck? Why can't I find anything that will
Yes.
work?
Yeah. So I've had two pathways on this. I launched in the body care space. So I had a clean deodorant, and then I had body odor wipes and foot odor wipes, which I'm not giving up on yet. Some life circumstances and the divorce, I paused that, but noticed in that process that why weren't there any teen boy in particular, but also just clean teen products. And so what I learned in that discovery were a couple of things. One, um, actually, if you have a teen boy, mostly you're like a crunchy natural granola mom, you end up giving your kids what your husband or partner uses. So if they're using Axe or Old Spice or any of those, that's actually end up. So I was fascinated by that. So that part. And then starting to look at this Gen Z population, these new generations, and what was important to them. So it was inclusivity, like it didn't matter what gender it was just for everybody, and not necessarily like LGBTQ, but just like it's a product for everyone, uh, environmentally friendly, and clean. So the kind of like all those things, and that's what I was putting into the originally the body care products, and notice that things that were gender inclusive were skewing millennial, so a little bit older, and skewing feminine, not skewing kind of younger Gen Z or masculine. And so if you end up finding some of my earlier products online, you'll see that there's like a cobalt blue, kind of just like fun, playful things that kids want to use or teens want to use. So that was that first iteration. And then as I got into this other space of more like looking at mental health and what the gap was, and friends and parents were saying, there's a ton of kid vitamins and there's a ton of adult vitamins. There's no teen vitamins, or not in the functional space. There's some multis, but not. And I was like,
Right.
you're right. And my kids in particular, and they want a gummy. They don't want to swallow a capsule. And it was just fascinating to kind of uncover that. So 85% of teens don't take a vitamin. And so there's a huge market there. And then the other thing I say is I raised my kids on all organic, made my own baby food, like was right in it. And he still wants Subway and Dr. Pepper. Right. And
Yes.
so like regardless of like what we've done as parents up to 2-year-old feeding your child, they're still starting to make their own decisions. So like I was really interested in like what did my kids need? And so when I developed the vitamins, was really looking at it was energy, because I was up against energy drinks, which not putting down any energy drink company, but I don't want my 11-year-old drinking
Well,
energy
yeah,
drinks.
I feel like could knock an adult out.
Exactly.
So giving that to an 11-year-old.
Yes. So that was like the impetus for that was like, no, what are the other products that we can be offering? And we can get into it later, but that's one of the challenges with my business, is that people aren't searching for me because they don't know it's available. Like
Right.
this alternative to it. And the other one was screen time. So I have one for for screen fatigue and blue light blocking, and it's been around forever as a capsule, never as a gummy. And so people think they're looking for blue light blocking glasses or how to reduce screen time, but there actually are things. So that's kind of the development of the products and where I came from that. But it was like a probably intuitive parent. Like, what are you looking for?
Right. It's the stuff that you wish you could find. And I think what is interesting that you mentioned too is the generational thing. And so this Gen Z market, it's also and you can tell me if this is right or not. What I'm thinking is like a dual education for both a parent that would like to give this to their child and the child understanding that they do have some ownership too of what they're doing and what they're taking. And historically, if what they have been offered is pretty much all that's out there, like here's a stick of Old Spice, your
Yeah.
dad who's 30 years older than you uses this, but here you go. It's potentially an interesting dichotomy of like educating the generation that uses it and the generation that provides it. Is that something that you come up
Oh, you hit the
against?
nail on the head completely. That it's also, as I'm getting into the mental health space too, it's this body awareness and educating parents and kids like how to support our kids. So I also see in the 5 SKUs I've launched, there's some that are like immediate, like sleep or energy. Like you're gonna
Yeah.
feel that immediately, and the kids are asking for that, or my kids, and anyway, like they know that's an immediate feeling, and so they're starting to understand what their body needs or what they want in a more natural way. The other 3 are more preventative, like immunity, relaxing. Well, the relaxing helps pretty quick as well, but and then preventive eye. And that's
Mm-hmm.
more coming from a parent perspective and a tool for a parent saying, this is good for you. This is going to help protect you in the future. And so you're kind of hitting both at the same time. The kids starting to understand what their body wants and needs through that immediate, like I need energy. And then the parents able to come in and say, well, maybe the immunity is going to help so you don't get sick, or like support that
Right.
way. And so I found that interesting as a communication tool too, right? And
Yeah.
so it's been really interesting to say like a body awareness between both generations. Um, like we're almost leaps and bounds, like leaping over things from our generation. Like the kids are just so much more aware, and part of that's social media and access, but aware to feelings and needs. And like Inside Out 2 just came out. Like they're
Oh,
just so much more aware of those things than we had as our generation. And so there's definitely learning happening between both parent and child.
yeah. And I think too, which makes me excited to hear that you're doing this, is as we get more access and our kids are getting more access to understanding these things. I think as generations progress, like more people are more open to things like therapy and talking about it. I think prior generations were like, sweep it under the rug, nothing's wrong, you're fine. Like, blah. It might be challenging and frustrating for these kids that are growing up and understanding they have these feelings and they want to be more in tune with them, and then being like, well, what do I do about it? Like there's nothing for me to really see. And so I really like that you're taking the approach too of both, okay, this is more of an immediate, like these are the things that help, just as adults have, just as we have access to things that help us. And I really think it's important for the other SKUs that are more, this might not impact you tomorrow, but like your health long term is important. And as teens, understanding how to incorporate that for lifelong health, like for lifelong, this is a lifelong process, not just oh, I want to sleep a little bit better tonight. So I
Right. And
really
they haven't
like that
hit
you're doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, and they haven't faced their mortality yet, so they think they're invincible still and all
Right.
of
Right. Yeah. And it's an
this.
interesting um, age, like I remember being a teen. And I think what's tough is the we'll do it because I said so. So your mom's trying to give you this vitamin that she takes or
Yeah.
your dad takes. Well, why do I have to do this? Because I said so. And I think that education piece and tying that back into understanding. And we even try to do this with like food of like different foods have different nutrients, like giving more explanation to why things are happening.
Mhm.
So have you had either from your own kids or from other users of the product, like kind of feedback on their experience of learning about all this?
Yes, I'm not so good at collecting it because I'm just like I absorb it. I'm like, wow, and I need to probably do better about that. And the testimonials are there, but the ones that like wow me the most are kids who take it in like in the school setting necessarily, like right at the
Mm,
end of the school where they needed to go into a test and they were super stressed and they felt the relax helped, or they had their sports and athletes and they're drinking the Gatorade and then the Monster or whatever it is, and then they found the and my energy is just to be complex, right? But drink that with a glass of water or, chew it with a glass of water and that's enough. And they're like, wow, that's all we need. I wish, can all the coaches have that? Can we like get this disseminated out to more coaches? Can we have it on the field? Therapists, like you mentioned, therapy would love to have asked to keep like samples in their waiting rooms. Like, because
yeah.
a lot of therapists are seeing kids from the 3 to 5, 6 p.m. like after school hours, and those kids are tired, they're burnt out. The last thing they want to do is talk about their feelings in an
Yeah.
office with somebody. And so if they could have like a little samples of the energy there, those are the ones that I'm seeing the most. And then the biggest seller happens right now to be the eyes because there's not any really anything else on the market. They're just starting to become, and they're like, wow, like we take vitamins for everything and not the one organ we're using all day long, all the time, and we're
Right.
fatiguing. And so that's where I'm seeing the most feedback. And then I think the other part that is less immediate is I'm like the biggest proponent of therapy. I don't have any letters after my name. I am not trained. I've just done this a lot with my kids, is that an hour of therapy a week is just not enough. Like that's like a snippet in the rest of our parenting journey all week long. And to like, what else can we support parents with all week? And so parents are like, at least I have this extra thing, or we can talk about sleep or good sleep hygiene, or we can talk about, immunity, or have like relaxes for stress. Like they have other things they can that are physical that lead to a conversation. And that's been interesting to see that, because even if you have access to therapy, it's not.
Right. It's a great tool to kind of then do the so what with. I That's how I even view it for myself and in the hour that I spend in there. It's always then like the takeaways that you can think about and implement. I kind of feel like that's almost like the class, and
Yeah.
then the homework is all the things that you do. And especially when you're with a teen, as maybe I can do it myself, as they say, you're
Yeah.
still needing to be there and handhold and help
Yes.
them understand and understand the world around them. And I know that you do have a huge focus on mental health, and there's proceeds of purchases that go to mental health organizations. Um, and that seems like potentially it's from your experience. So that seems like a big importance to you in terms of your integrity and your core values. So can you talk a little bit more about giving back and that incorporation?
Yeah. Um, so it's been a journey to kind of figure that out, because I've worked in the impact and philanthropic space, that like you making sure your dollars go where you want them to go and having impact. So we're still navigating that. We've given out little bits and pieces, and I'm just launching, so it hasn't been large amounts. What I would foresee is a greater partnership, not just that we're giving proceeds, like percentage back, but partnering with an organization that aligns with us, that we could do collaborations with and partnerships and more amplifying voices. I would like, that's my goal, is to have a larger partnership that's more than just proceeds. And part of it also, and the why behind that is, for me, it's obvious, it's important, but it's part of it's access to care. Like
Mm,
if you live in a city, I came from New York, now Colorado, different parts of Colorado, you can take for granted that you do have access to care. Even if you don't have the funds, there are different ways to access those things. When you're in rural places, it's a lot hard.
yep.
And even with telehealth now, that's not really always bridging the gap. So for me, access is a huge thing. And then um, I guess beyond access, it is the community element, because I'm all, as a parent and not having those letters after my name, I want other parents to feel like they have a place to go to talk or to be vulnerable. And to, it's a scary thing to say my kid may be suicidal or my kid has an eating disorder. Like that is so scary to share within your own group of friends or your own community. But to have a place to go is really important for me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's interesting because I've now been doing this and in this space for quite some time. And I live my life. I don't care who knows what about me. I'm
Me
like,
too.
you want to hear? I'll tell you. And what's been really interesting is sometimes my friends and my family love me very deeply, but if someone hasn't yet experienced something firsthand, the most they can kind of give you back is like, I'm sorry, I'm here for you. Strangers on the internet that I have met have some of them have become my very, very dear friends because we experienced infertility. We had a whole journey with that. And not a ton of my friends had gone through it. There's only so much that they can help you with if they don't know what it's like. And so it was a really interesting thing to see. And I love that that's where the vision is to head for this, because sometimes it is actually easier to reach out to a complete stranger if you know they know
Yeah.
what that feels like and what that is. And parenting is terrifying. I mean, whether you're a first time mom or a 12th time mom, every kid's also going to be different. And so that to me is also bridging a gap. So, not, nutritionally, you can bridge a gap, but like
The
what
parent.
is surrounding that, the parent, and some of these really heavy and deep things that people may go through. I
Mhm.
love that. I love
Yeah.
that because it's
I would just
important.
also add that even though I have teens, the 2-year-old, 4-year-old is very much ingrained in my head. Like it doesn't seem that long ago. And one friend in particular has 4-year-old twins who she's dealing with a lot right now with them, and even late potty training and everything. We're going for a walk. And one of them in particular, I tell a story because I think it's so illustrative. When you're in it, you don't always have that perspective, but is rebuilding a Lego every morning, like, and rebuilding and wants it perfect every morning. And it's so frustrating when it's not perfect. And it's like this tension in the house every morning. And I just from in a moment of like feeling empathetic with her, I was like, well, what I would see is that, and I'm again, no letters after my name,
Yeah.
but like the daughter sees these, what she perceives as these two perfect parents. Everything looks great, go to work, everything is done for it looks perfect. She doesn't see your imperfections. What if you just like start cutting dinner, the carrots, and then oops, I cut it wrong, or start showing her that you're, the modeling of you're not doing something correctly, or the things that you're getting wrong, or I, dropped something and it broke. I think that might change. And she's like, oh my gosh, you're exactly right. Right. She doesn't see any imperfection. And just that little, like one anecdote and one like shift was able to turn things. And I think that's why community is so important, because she could have spent an hour in therapy
Right.
and right and talking about whatever that issue is. But hearing from another parent, like, I kind of wish I had done more modeling when my kids were 2 and 4. Not that I got it right or perfect. And I wish, but in hindsight, that is something I wish I had done even better. Right.
Yeah,
So
it's formative. It's formative years. I mean, a lot of, I still feel like I'm in formative years and I'm 35, but it's very true. And I think that's the piece of community as well, is even just being able to like toss out the question of like, hey, I've tried it all. I've been trying everything. Does anyone have something that worked for them? We're willing to try. We're willing to try this. I think that is really important. And it can be very isolating when you're going through this and you feel like maybe you're the only one that's ever experienced this. And to have someone else to say, like, hey, see if this works. And maybe if it doesn't, explore something else. But I think we're also getting better as a generation of showing our kids it's okay to be a human and, showing them sometimes like I try my best to do this. I don't get it perfect, but if I need to cry about something, like I don't always hide that from my 2-year old because, sometimes mommy gets sad and these are feelings and it's okay. And trying my best to like validate him when he's having big emotions. Like I think we're getting there with that. And this generation hopefully is, I think our parents felt the pressure to be like, nothing's wrong ever. And then you're
yeah.
like, and then you find out as a parent, my mom's like, oh yeah, there was chaos all the time. I'm like, why didn't you tell me?
Yeah, exactly. You're not serving anyone by hiding it all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we go through hard things too. And you noted you're a single mom now, and so navigating that and trying to explain that to your kids
Yeah.
is a big thing. Um, so a community there, like people need to find their people.
Completely.
It's a very
Yes.
important process.
Mhm.
So I love that there's a tie in to that. And so, like long-term vision, is that something that it would be almost like a space for community for people that purchase your project? What do you think
Yeah.
would?
I feel like I'm in this little bit of a vortex right now of because I'm self-funded and doing this mostly by myself, which is insane. Um, But if there were more of me and more resources, I'm so passionate about the platform and like connecting people and kind of building that out, or here's where you can go, or here's my experience kind of thing. And then, oh, by the way, here's a tool and vitamins, and giving back like kind of the product with the tools together. Right now, it's just been product launch and
Yeah.
people interested in getting on the shelf and where it is. There's also a lot of room, I think, for brand extension in terms of I haven't even hit gut health, brain health focus, sports, like energy. Like I think there's a lot to do there. And so with each one of those additions is also another community platform to enter or partnership. So long term, I want to see those two come together and more in that part. I'm all about partnerships and collaboration. So I would love more of that. I also think, I mean, it's every founder's dream to have a celebrity influencer. But for me, it's not just like, any celebrity, but really like the Billie Eilish is of the world, or the Lady Gagas who are into mental health, like to really have someone who is a passionate about it with me and to own it, who has a platform, would be huge.
Yeah.
And that's where I can see the most, um, not most impact, but just like movement and breadth to really share that space, because they have the platform and then they have a parent with it. That's where I would love to go with it.
Yeah.
So I think you might find a lot of founders who are like, no, I want to be on every shelf in Target and Walmart and like, and yes, that would be amazing. And for me, it's amazing because those proceeds would then fund stuff. But for me, it's also just that community building. And
It's
I should have
awareness.
added
Yeah.
early on too, my products, although targeted for teens and older kids, they're safe for age 4 and older. So there's really room for, and adults take them too. So although this like niched into the parenting of the older kids, a product that anyone can take.
Yeah. So if we could, in terms of more of like the business side of this, what has your been like, what's your experience been like build
Oh,
like quite literally building this? Because you noted that it's you are it, you are marketing, you are IT, you are sales, you are
yeah.
everything. And you're also creating a tangible product. So now you're also having to do like distribution and creation. So what's your experience as an entrepreneur been like?
Oh yeah. So I'm thankful that I'm blissfully unaware in some ways, that because if I had known all this, maybe I wouldn't, it's just an amazing process. And people ask all the time, how did you figure it out? I think part of it is my curiosity, one foot in front of the other. Like I saw a challenge and how to tackle it. I also am not, I'm a logistics strategy, finance person, operations, not necessarily creative. And that's probably the hardest part. So I've had some consulting help for the creative. I also say, like, I know when I see it, if it resonates with me as a parent, or like it
Yeah.
speaks to me, then it works. I might not be designing the packaging, but I know what I'm interested in. So just trusting my gut in a lot of that. I think I listen to a lot of podcasts about startups in that space, and then my own community in that startup. There's really amazing resources if you're able to dig into them. Almost too many, so you have to like kind of weed through them.
Yeah.
But some of the spaces and platforms that are for startups, especially in the packaged goods space, have been really valuable because that like parenting, they're in it with you. And so learning from them. And this comes with probably what you said about curiosity and vulnerability, is if I'm willing to share my journey, then other people can share their resources and their journey. So less
Mhm.
competition. And I truly believe that there's room for everyone in the market and space. So I come from that angle. It's hard though. And so you're probably catching me at a point where I'm probably needing to look for funding soon as we grow, which is a good thing, but
Yep.
also scary. Retaining the business and my vision with it. But it's also because I don't know what I don't know, like distribution and manufacturing, and I'm at one point and it's the next. And so I think that's how I've approached it. But then kind of if you're interested in like the operations and nuts and bolts, like how I even started,
Yes.
the the body care is very different because I actually worked with a formulator, created a formula that I was into, how to look for packaging. I wanted it sustainable. I was on 100% recycled plastic. Everything's made in the US, nothing's coming from overseas. So it's like really doing the research to find all of that. The vitamins a little bit different
Yeah.
because there's not a lot of innovation in vitamins, in the sense that like melatonin's melatonin, ashwagandha, whatever, like those are like, and then you're looking at flavor and clean ingredients to make them. And so that's where my focus was okay, how can I make it the cleanest, something I would want to give my kids. I started with one manufacturer. I'm now more local in Colorado, found someone who could work with me to kind of like adjust things. Um, and I also launched in the height of COVID, where manufacturers were looking for really high minimum orders. And that was,
Yeah.
I did it, but I've learned from that. So I look for people who can like really, who are wanting to support smaller founders and then can scale with them. So it's kind of taking the actual product, then the packaging, and like putting it all together. Um, Yeah. And if you have any specific questions, I feel like it's like this whole
Yeah.
nebulous, it all comes together at some point, but there are a lot of steps in
And then
between.
sometimes it doesn't. So I left my corporate
Just,
career last
yeah.
year and I had been doing a lot of this stuff on the side and health coaching and I teach fitness and all this stuff. And then I fully made the switch and that it feels like sometimes these things come at you and something, especially when something goes wrong. It's like your website goes down and you're like, I don't know how to code. I'm not
Yeah.
sure what's happening here and trying to figure that out all on your own can be really, really overwhelming. And I think maybe we're similar here in the sense of sometimes you have to let go of that control of your like, I almost just have to wait until I need to figure it out sometimes
Yes. You can't do it all.
because I can't anticipate. Like if I spent all of my time anticipating what I may need to know, uh, there's not much else I would get done. I feel like I would spend all of my time worrying about things that I maybe need to eventually at some point in the future understand. And so I like that you're looking and searching for manufacturers, especially who some of them, you know, if I'm hearing you, like you go to them and they expect you to have it all figured out. And you're like, no, I'm a small business. And I have every right to be here as like a P&G would, you know,
Yes.
I can't be expected to know all of this. So
Yeah.
it,
I think also, and what I'm hearing too from you, like what those challenges were where so if I share some of that, like it's scary even to admit something, like some of the biggest investments I made were financially didn't yield me anything. And that
mm,
was so scary as it's coming out of your own pocket. But I have to like pivot and think like, no, I learned from that
yep,
versus like beating myself up like huge marketing dollars because I don't have that marketing background. And someone's like, this will sell media online. Like this is gonna kill it online, and this is how we're gonna do it. Nothing, right?
right.
And then here I am with no experience reaching out to like micro influencers on Instagram who I identify with, who I think would be interested in the product. And they're like, oh yeah, we'd love to try it. And then they post for free. Right. And so I didn't know that unless I did what I did. Right. And so a lot of it is trial and error, like a lot of error and a lot of trial.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't know that without that. So I think giving myself some self-compassion and grace in that process because I did not have it all figured out. And I definitely spent places where like I'm kicking myself, but I wouldn't have known otherwise.
It is a sort of sometimes like the throw pasta at the wall. We hope it sticks. If it
Yes.
doesn't, we have to figure it out. And I think it's really important to have these conversations. And I'm very grateful for your transparency because like if someone goes to your website, they see this like beautiful, colorful website that's done and looks professional and there's like these products. They didn't see the day one until now. They didn't see everything that has gone into that. They haven't seen the sleepless nights and the grind that you've had to elicit. And I think a lot of people do have big dreams of starting something of their own or creating a business. And it can feel very intimidating to look at someone's chapter 20 and you're on chapter 0, like, oh, I'll never make this happen. Or it looks really glamorous. And,
Yes.
you know, it's wonderful. I think it's very gratifying to own your own thing, but there are things along the way that you have to mitigate. And I think it comes back to your passion, like where you saw this gap, where you are a parent, where you know in your heart, like this is something that can make a difference. And so, what are some other ways, especially maybe on the challenging days, that you're like, all right, Dara, keep going,
Yeah.
keep going?
I there are many days where I'm like, why am I doing this? I should just go. I mean, I love my previous job, right? Like, who wouldn't
Yeah.
want to be solving Ebola in Africa, right? Like, it's amazing. And like when I joke, I'm like, some days it seems like it's easier to solve malaria in Latin America than launch a vitamin business. Um, so I think part of it's this like self-compassion. The days where I'm like, I can't do this anymore. It is, I say ruthlessly prioritizing my to-do list. Like, what's one thing? What is the
Yeah.
one thing I can do today? Because otherwise my 40 list, my thing that's 40 lists, 40 things long, I just can't tackle and it's too much, or I need more time with my kids. Um, I think it's also getting that validation. So maybe I'll go a whole week and something, it just doesn't feel like it's working. All of a sudden I get a hit and someone, like a big buyer, wants to meet me. And I was like, whoa, like that came from nowhere. And that's what keeps me going. The podcast, these in particular, these conversations, I've been on quite a few recently. Either they take kind of two conversations. One is about parenting and my journey with parenting and mental health. And the other is more this business. I love this one because it kind of combines both.
Yeah.
But those conversations have also really invigorated me because it helps me remind me of my journey and like that other people are out there with that. Like the community part helps me keep going for sure. But it's really, really hard and alone and a lonely journey when you don't have a co-founder or someone to bounce it
Yeah.
off as well or a partner. that can be really hard too. And I think giving yourself some grace about that, like to jump in and to do that, to
Yeah.
work it.
I forget the stats. It's a very low number of the people who actually make the leap to start a business. And that's sometimes what I take like solidarity in is like, I'm badass, like keep going. And I have
Yeah.
the same, a very similar experience where I'll have a week. I'm just like, what am I doing? Like I'm screaming into the void, it feels like.
Yeah.
And then something incredible happens and you're reminded of like the why. And it's interesting too, because my dad, who's no longer with us, but one of my like biggest inspirations is the name of the is the why this podcast is named what it is, to have these conversations, to invite people into your tent. He always told me he would never trust or work with someone that has not failed
Hmm. Love
because
it.
he's like, because we all have. And how, what I'm more interested in is how they pivoted. How did you pivot from that? What did you learn? What did you implement? Like, I don't give a hoot that that didn't work. I really don't. Like,
Yeah.
I want to know what you took from that. I want to know what you did because of it. And that to him showed more character and like passion than someone coming to him with this resume of successes.
Yeah.
Like, that's great. I'm
I
happy
love
about that.
that.
But yeah.
What a gift he gave you with that. I would also, yeah, I'm a finalist for a program with Whole Foods, which is amazing. Know in a couple of weeks or whenever this airs, but hopefully I'll know by then.
Yeah.
It, like down to like the final. And there's been a lot of support from them. But what I think has served me in that process is being very transparent. Like where I'm at with what my sales are, what have been the struggles. And they're like, yeah, we want to know that because we want to know what we're, supporting getting into that. That
Yeah.
serves us better than, elevating or everything else that you've done. And so it has served me to be more transparent, even with the Whole Foods of the world. And I would say coming back to what you said about like the website and everything looks so polished. I will say that's a double-edged sword in that in terms of the close family and friends, maybe you've experienced this, but like friends think are killing it. Or like what they see is like this, the social media and the website. I was like, no, you still need to buy my product and you still need to
Right.
support me.
You
We
still
still
need
need
to,
to share it with people. You need to like leave reviews. And the friends forget, like friends and family, I should say. Um,
yes. That's where I'm saying strangers sometimes. You're like, it's really baffling. This is a thing I've spoken to other entrepreneurs or other people that are in this space where it's like this disconnect where they don't really feel like they have
yeah.
to go. I'm like, no, like you need to actually go like so hard. Luckily, my mom literally is like, she's like, but it is a really weird, baffling thing where you're like, I've truly never met some people that I've been connected to for 5 years in person, but I FaceTime. Like, it's a
Yes.
really weird thing. And that's where I think, even within just sharing your product itself and the story behind your product, even if someone never it gets in touch with you personally, face to face, or on the internet per se, they're buying a product where they know that there is some tie back personally to mental health, to
Mhm.
parenting. It's almost like by purchasing or by interacting, in essence, makes people feel less alone of like, ooh, this is hitting the nail on the head for me. Even if they never meet you, like in real life, it
Completely.
still
Yeah.
connects back.
It makes me feel, at least it makes me feel better too. Like that's my journey. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, I know. I'm with you. It's very,
It's
it's
like,
whole
friends, you should
owning.
be buying a case of vitamins.
I know. I'm like, no, this whole business ownership thing is wild. And I did see some of it with my dad, because he started a business. I think I was 9, and he started it in my house. And I just was kind of like, la la la, like there's all these people here. The receptionist keeps picking up the wrong phone line, and it's for me. And like it was fun and funny. And then when I got older, he did give some more of that sort of like, now that was a little terrifying. Like if that had gone sideways, mm, we nope, things would not have we would have not been well.
Yes.
And again, it goes back to kind of like talking to your kids about that. So do you, I mean, your kids are what, 11 and,
So 16 and 14.
oh,
When I started, they were younger.
okay. That was
So
what I was.
beginning of COVID, yeah. And the company's named after them, right? So like their name is on the packaging. And what been desperate for them, I should say desperate, but can you guys make your own post? Could you do a video for me? Could you help
Yeah.
me? Whatever. And they're kind of hesitant. What I do see is when their friends try it and they like it, or I've been in school and give out samples, or like I hired an intern from their school. And then when they see other kids like it, it's like the peer pressure. They're like, oh yeah, that's my mom's business. So like they get into it when they see that validation. But
Yeah.
I think I don't know if it's boys and like they're in their own world and their own thing. I mean, COVID and like socials, everything is the whole
Yeah.
world is upside down right now or coming out of it. Um, but they also, if I really ask, they'll help me. I haven't needed a whole lot of help, I should say, but I would wanted them to participate more than they
Yeah.
have.
Well, part of
We'll
it too
see.
is maybe like, Mom, you're
Totally.
embarrassing me. You're
Yeah.
mortifying.
Yeah.
So that
One of their
might be some.
friends, so like someone from their school is an interning for me this summer, and she's totally into it and like sees it, and now they're a little bit more like, oh, one of the cool girls is liking the product, so they're into it a little bit more. But so we'll see how that changes.
Yeah. And it seems like you have a very good relationship with them in terms of talking about mental health. Has that always been high priority? Did that kind of come out of something else? What does that look like? Because I'm
Yeah.
always looking towards others who are doing this because I want to emulate that myself.
Yeah, it's it's been part of our conversation for a long time because of their own challenges, and that's why I'm passionate about it. A lot of anxiety. I'm open about all of it. OCD, even like a random kind of eating disorder. It's not talked about a lot about. It's called avoidant restrictive intake disorder, ARFID. It's these kids who it's not about body image. It's about so either it's a sensitivity. Usually, kids who've had reflux, so they don't like the feeling of feeling full. Either they don't, or it's control. My son in particular just didn't want to eat like didn't want to feel full, but it's kids who either want to eat one kind of chicken nugget or like one pasta and that's it, or kids who just eat very small amounts because they don't like the full feeling. But I had no idea. So like it was
Yeah.
navigating that.
Never heard of it.
Um,
Yeah.
OCD, anxiety, school. I have ADHD, dyslexia, like all of that. And so what has happened and transpired in my journey, what in parenting, and I learned from it, wish I had a little bit different perspective when they're younger, is not trying to fix them, but support them. And I think it came across as like something's wrong with you and we need to fix it versus this is who you are, you're amazing, but let's support you through this. And that has changed in the last few, like I would say 4 or 5 years with them for sure.
Yeah.
That's where we come from. But earlier years, it was like something's wrong with you. We need to go to doctor. Not, I didn't say it overtly like that, but I probably felt that way to them. And
Hmm.
so that's where I think I've come to and from with that journey with them is you are amazing and maybe your brain works differently, but like here's how we can support you. Here are the tools versus you need therapy because something's wrong with
Yeah. I am grateful. My mom, when I was growing up, my brother was, experiencing some stuff and went to a therapist when we were children. And she booked me an appointment and she was like, listen, nothing's really wrong. I think it's just really nice to talk to someone that's not me. It's
Yeah.
normal. Just go chat.
Yeah.
She has toys. Like she made it so incredibly normal
Amazing.
where
Yeah.
she's like, everyone has things and some things are hard. Here's this person. If you like her, great. If you don't, let's talk about it. Like she was really, really cool about that. And I really appreciate what you're saying with also not trying to change them. Like at a certain point, I'm a firm believer, like we are who we are. There's
Mm-hmm.
certain things that we can work on, but we're born. My son, we have never taught him once to be as like daredevil as he is. Like there's intrinsically things within
Yeah.
you, and then adding that layer of also supporting them because there has been research, and I don't know if you've gone down this path too within the formulation of like what we put in our bodies and mood, hormones, all of those things, and also maybe not making ADHD or OCD
Yeah.
better, making
So
them worse. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm the first, like I'm not against medication.
Mhm.
We've tried it, but my son doesn't metabolize any, no SSRI, no, like nothing. And so in lieu of that, we had to find other natural things or other things or movement and things. And so what we have found is gluten-free
Mhm.
definitely works for him, which is you also need their buy-in because it kind of is it's hard. And he doesn't
Yeah.
always want to be gluten-free, but he is at an age where he knows that it doesn't feel good in his body. So definitely diet, like that's where we come from in the nutritionist space, but diet for sure and exercise. And so we were pretty much in crisis last year with him, and we moved because of that to a school that focuses on school trauma, social emotional learning, and also this kind of like 2E brain. And it's all about outside and movement. If like you need to go throw the ball for a little while and come back and learn or whatever that movement is, overnight transformation, no medication. And like
Amazing.
from a parent who has tried I'm not against it. You find your own journey. I'm supportive of that. It didn't work for us. And to see that just the environment change and school change was transformational has been, that's part of my journey as well, to, help support parents in that. So it's diet, it was environment, and I'm sure because my kids are coming to this age of like vaping and alcohol and substance abuse, like all of that stuff that's right in front of them. And if you know what's out there, it's freaking scary. Like the number of fentanyl overdoses I even know personally, like
Yeah.
it's just too, it scares me as a parent. So like, it's like, what can I do? And you can't control everything, and they are who they are, but it is awareness. It's just awareness. And it's
Yeah.
like, you can control everything. So like to your point with your mom and like making it fun and therapy and making it accessible, we just talk about it as like mental hygiene, like
Yeah.
good, like you go to the dentist for dental hygiene, you go for your wellness checkup once a year. It's just one, I want that for everyone. It's just mental hygiene.
I mean, I think world peace would be achieved if everyone had a therapist. Like I say this, I'm like, if everyone just went, I swear the world would be solved.
Yeah.
And I still leverage therapy to this day. And it's always really interesting to me because when I go in, there'll be like sessions where like I don't really feel like I have much to talk about. And then I get in there and I'm like, bleh, like I just everything. I leave
Yeah,
and oh, I thought I didn't have anything to talk about. Here I am. And it's just a really important conversation, I think, to normalize. And I think then that also layering that in, especially when we're talking about the conversation of marketing to the parents and marketing to the kids, the ingredients also being something to talk to them about of like, hey, you know how you feel like trash when you ingest this? Like, let's talk about these ingredients, why this is important, why eventually when they're adults and they're maybe looking at a shelf of the gazillion options to
yeah,
buy, where their brain will go to say like what will be the best choice to me. It's starting that conversation
yeah,
early as well of this is what this does, this is what this does, this is, maybe something to avoid if it doesn't make you feel good, even starting as young as kids
yeah.
2 3 4, like getting that to then empower them to make the decisions when they are adults of I'm standing in front of a shelf and what am I going to buy? Well, I've already learned all this about my body. So I think it's all then tying together of
Completely.
the education and actually
There's
what's in there. Yeah.
completely. And there's so much noise about melatonin, ashwagandha, and all the different supplements. Like I'm happy to engage anyone conversation. I'm all about data and show me the reason, like show
Mhm.
me the studies and all of that. Like I'm not going to deny any of that. I just happen to say like these are gentle. This is what I would use. This is good for me and my kids. But I'm not saying it's the be all end all. I'm not, but it's just starting to make informed choices. And it's interesting to talk to parents of younger children too, because sometimes people say, well, yours have sugar in them. And I said, yep, because I need them. I'm up against a Monster or a Red Bull. And if mine has a couple grams of sugar in it and they taste good and they want to eat them, I'm all for that. Where I totally understand if you have a 2 4 year old 5 year old and you're trying to reduce sugar, I get that you might make other
Yeah.
choices and maybe they need different supplements. But if you have a 14-year-old and you want them to take a vitamin, like you want it to taste good.
You want them to ask for it. Like
Yes.
that's the end goal. I mean, in parenting in general, I feel like it's always like, is this a battle that's worth fighting? Did my son have a popsicle in the car on the way to school this morning? Yes.
Yes.
Because I was like, listen, like sometimes it's just not worth fighting this battle. And I feel like we can all do our best to, like you were saying, the example of like, what was it, Subway and a Red Bull or Subway to and a Mountain Dew? Like I offer, we do our best to do these things to offer. And I'm also big on trying to let him lead as much as realistically possible,
Yeah.
ask for what he needs and honor that and work with him. Of
Yeah.
course, there's times where you have to pull the parent card and be like,
Yeah.
this, your safety is my number one priority. And I am sorry that not letting you jump off the kitchen table is aligning with that.
Exactly.
But
Like the
it's
Dr. Becky, yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's like so I know. I'm like so sorry that my need for your safety is not aligning with your current actions. But starting those conversations really, really early. And so I see your product, not a product. I see your product as education, lifestyle, obviously
Yeah.
physical product, conversation openers. Like you're doing a lot more. And I think that's something that with time and messaging, like that's what will come out of. Like you're not just buying a vitamin. You're
Right.
buying you're buying a lifestyle. So,
That's what I'm hopeful for. And I think again, you're so perceptive. That's my not pain point, but the hardest thing right now is brand awareness, education, and storytelling. Because
mhm.
when I have these one-on-one conversations, or hopefully like your listeners as well, people get it and they're like, yes, totally. There's no controversy there, but it's getting that message out because it's not a natural Google search or even an Amazon search to say,
Yeah.
like, what's my alternative to energy drink, or eye health. And so it is this like slow burn of education and awareness from different avenues, right? The therapy, the mental health, the gut health, all of that kind of stuff. So that's where I feel like my pain point right now is if I had more funding or more resources, it would be brand awareness and PR marketing, kind of that thing, not for sales, but just for that awareness
Yeah.
piece.
And I was involved in the CPG space in the marketing and data analytics world for a very long time. And I know CPG is a consumer packaged goods, if people don't know what that is a beast. It is the most niched, unique, odd vertical ever. Like
Yes.
it's nothing is the same. No two brands. It's a beast. And so I give you a lot of kudos for being in CPG because it has also seen in my opinion, some of the craziest, maybe aside from travel and hospitality, but
Mhm.
with COVID, the craziest, like woo, woo, like ups,
Yeah.
downs.
And I think I've been approached by some investors, which I'm totally open to, but they have to understand CPG. It's not like a normal product or even tech or fintech. It doesn't have the same returns. The exits are, could be huge, but like it just doesn't match what other people think. So the people in that space have to understand it. And like
Yeah.
I went to the Expo West, which is a big trade show every year where all the brands are, for my first time, which was so overwhelming, but also validating because there was no one else in my space, right? Like I
Mhm.
have this white space, which is amazing, and I'm so grateful for it. But it also means that I'm a category creator. And even like with Whole Foods, they're like, well, where do you sit on the shelf? Not really with the kids, not really with the adults. The packaging together, all five of them look really great lined up together. More often than not, they probably will be separated into sleep, into immunity. And so they have to be able to stand alone. Like there's all the differences on being on a
Yeah.
retail shelf versus online. Like there's so much there in the business space too. So it's nice to talk to someone who gets it and understands that it's a really crazy space to.
And then owning the data of purchasing is the other thing that gets absolutely. I'm always happy to have another side conversation about this as
Yes,
I
please.
literally like love this stuff. Because that's a lot of the challenges for CPGs as well, is like trying to figure out like Whole Foods technically owns the point of sale data. You don't, you own your direct, website
Right.
data,
But
but
I will say, but I fought off being on Amazon forever. And
mm,
then, but that's where my sales are. Like, even as a consumer, as a mom, I prefer to buy my basket on it, Amazon. It comes, it's easy, I know, versus the
yeah.
Shopify. Like, yeah, I want to support small businesses, but like the checkout and ease of Amazon makes it, that's where people are buying.
I know. I'm always kind of in that camp too, especially as like a parent, a new parent. My favorite gift to give a freshly postpartum mom is an Amazon gift card. And my message is always the same. It's like for the, oh shit, we're out of X, Y, and Z at 2 a.m. moments.
All of
It's
it.
it's Amazon.
All of it.
It's Amazon. And as a business owner, you do have to make those decisions sometimes of like what's going to be best for the business. Like sometimes you have to put your like personally, I love supporting a small business. Business wise, you're also a business. Like you have to wear that hat
All
as
of
well. And but
it.
yeah, I'm always happy to chat. CPG is I did leave the world because it is just wild. It's a wild world to live in. But I absolutely love what you're doing within the space. I love what you're doing with the products. And I really hope that everyone here also knows that this is not just a vitamin and like the mental health combo to me really hits home as someone who has struggled with mental health issues. And for all I know, my son will too. We just don't know what we don't know yet. So I really
We're all
appreciate
in it. We're
we're
all
all in
living
it.
this.
We're
Yeah.
all living.
In the
Uh,
tent.
yes, in the tent. Well, you're in the tent now. Now you like I always say, like once you're in, you can't leave. You're in here now. It has been a joy and a delight to be able to speak to so many people. And this is what I think with all of this that we've been talking about, entrepreneurship, parentship, like we don't know what we can only have one experience, ours. I feel like there's nothing but value, typically, I mean, usually that people bring when you just listen to what they have to say. If you want to take the advice or implement it, that's up to you. People like you make this show what it is. And I would love to have further conversations too about all of this, however I can help, um, because I am really passionate about the mental health side of things, especially. So where can people find you, both product and you, socials? Where can people find you?
Yeah, all the things. So the product is shopsamandleo.com, all spelled out. You can get resources there, the product, and email. Hi@shopsamandleo.com, or me directly, happy to field questions. And it's Dara@shopsamandleo.com. And all of our socials, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, is at Shop Sam and Leo as well. And follow is great too, because we
Yeah.
put out lots of other things. We tag a lot of mental health, and we post mental health support, and where you can find us. And if interested in the product too, right now on Amazon, but hopefully we'll be on that Whole Foods shelf soon.
I feel it. I feel
Yeah.
it. We're gonna manifest that, and we're gonna make that happen. So if you are in a Whole Foods and you see it, I will also be tagging all of this in the show
Yeah.
notes and then when resharing on socials and
Yeah.
everything as
And
well.
if
And
anyone even just wants samples too, like I'm
oh,
happy to give out
yeah,
samples, and or if you have a store, or someone who has a boutique or store and wants to who wants to try them there, happy to do that, because I think that they've done really well in the boutique space and travel space, sleep, energy, immunity.
yeah,
Yeah. So
airports. I feel like airports for some
mhm.
reason is where my mind
Yes.
goes on that.
Yeah,
Maybe because I was just in an airport, but
for sure.
yes, I will be tagging all of Dara's socials, handles, everything. Dara, thank you so, so much for coming into the tent, sharing your story. We're all rooting for you and we appreciate you so, so much.
Thank you for having this. This was a great conversation.
Thank you. Thank you.